I suppose, I grew up having a lot of hospital time in hospital as a child, a lot of operations from being a baby, and spent quite a lot of time in hospital, and I'm sure that had something to do with it. I was always quite practical as a kid. I got quite an engineering mind with a father who's quite engineering. But I think the big turning point was when my mother had an illness when I was 10, 11. She got something called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a paralytic virus that made her go blind, couldn't blink. She was on a ventilator for 6 months, and she had about 2 to 3 years of physio rehabilitation, learning to move and walk and hold her head up and breathe. And it was a long rehabilitation. So although that was neurology really, and more a neurology side of physiotherapy, which isn't what I do day to day these days, it was certainly a powerful insight into physiotherapy. I was already interested in medicine, I think, having spent so much time around hospitals, but even from being an early teenager, I was beginning to think there's more to medicine than drugs and surgery, and seeing the power of being able to work with your hands to help people heal, improve, get rid of pain, restore function. So I worked as a physiotherapy assistant for a year after my A-levels. Up in South Yorkshire, then went on to train as a physio at Bradford School of Physiotherapy and trained in Bradford and Leeds. After that, then I went to work back down South Yorkshire again, did a postgraduate in advanced manual therapy at the Northern General Hospital in Sheffield, and I worked in Barnsley and Sheffield area. So during the undergraduate and the postgraduate, what often my patients find interesting to hear about is the fact that we train in pretty much every area of medicine. A lot of people see what we do here day to day and hands-on manual therapy as being what physiotherapy is. But we have to train in paediatrics, elderly care, amputees, intensive care, coronary care, mental health, obstetrics and gynecology, women's health, you name it, as well as orthopedics, rheumatology, outpatient work. So that took me the 5 years really of working around those different areas of medicine. So having worked in the north, and then I came down to the south of England, worked again in the NHS for about 18 months. And during that time, I suppose I could see changes beginning to take place within the National Health Service. Private practice was much more prevalent in the south. I'd never really considered it, but I began to see that the NHS might be heading slightly more towards a more distant approach and less hands-on, and a little bit more towards managing patients by exercise alone. And I'm not criticising my NHS colleagues. It's a different way of working, but it wasn't one that suits me. And I tend to think that a blend of exercise therapy, but with a lot of hands-on and time with people, is important. And in fact, if we look at the research, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the time that is spent between patient and therapist is a very, very strong indicator of outcome. And sometimes even to the extent that it's less about the specifics of which technique one uses, and it's more about the relationship that we have and trust that we have between patient and therapist, that therapeutic alliance, as it's sometimes called, as the research shows, is probably a bigger indicator of outcome than anything else. And I certainly went into this profession because I wanted to spend time with people and to see treatment durations cutting down and down and down, and being told that I couldn't operate in a holistic way and I needed to just treat the single part that the person was bringing to me, was just ever increasingly feeling wrong. So I set up on my own because I wanted to be able to practice how I felt patients should be treated. I think one's practice evolves throughout one's career, or hopefully it should do, otherwise we're not growing and we're not changing and we're not thinking. My final year research project was into anterior knee pain, a particular problem in the knee, and I was always interested in spines. I think they're very complex, and well, 2/3 of the patients that walk through the door have got back, neck pain or headaches, migraines or something coming from their spine. So if you're going to work in musculoskeletal medicine, you've got to be pretty good at treating spines. So spines and knees I was known for a long time. And a lot of the surgeons in and around the Reading area and Windsor would kindly send patients to me for those sorts of problems. These days people want to know, okay, are you a specialist in knees, are you a specialist in shoulders? There's no doubt that we all have more interest in certain body areas and more skills in certain areas, but particularly the way I work, I think if we become too reductionist in the way we think, then I think we start missing things. And it kind of goes against the grain for me, because to have an holistic approach rather means that if I'm going to be a specialist in anything, then it's the specialist in the whole being, and it's integration when we're looking at how even mechanically something going wrong in one's foot might be causing jaw pain or back pain. To say you're a specialist in jaw pain and that you only treat the jaw is just naive, and it's not right. So we have to look at the body as a whole. I these days in spines has gone probably upwards to treating a lot of neck problems, upper quadrant problems, jaws, headaches, migraines, neck, shoulder. But again, all the time I'm looking for, well, why is that patient not getting better, or for the ones that don't get better? Or looking at the patterns that come with the patients that walk through the door every day, and you begin to notice, okay, so why do a lot of people with long-term neck and shoulder problems have problems with their thyroid? And then when you question them, might have had a lot of tonsillitis as a child. Now, a lot of conventional medicine say, well, that's a nonsense and it's poppycock. Well, you either just delude yourself, or when you've had thousands and thousands of patients walking through the door with the same pattern, then for me, I go, there's something in that. And that's driven my practice to look at the reasons why those patterns exist, and they do. And I won't be so arrogant as to say I get it, because I think it's a constant learning, but I certainly know a lot more than I did 30 years ago. And that's taken me to look at Chinese medicine, it's taken me to look at craniosacral therapy, Ayurvedic medicine, energy medicine, and more latterly connective tissue and fascial medicine, and also the mind-body connection from a body psychotherapy point of view and a neurology point of view. So that's now led more into connective tissue problems, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but also fascial problems causing musculoskeletal pains in various parts of their body. And also, it's worth noting I do a lot of trauma work, trauma more in a psychological trauma term, as well as physical trauma, of course, that's the bread and butter of physiotherapy, but psychological trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic events, and how that's sitting within the nervous system, or even how people with anxiety and stress, which we all have, but it's how we process that, and whether that stays in our body and creates our pain, and sometimes is the reason for ongoing and long-term pain that doesn't get long-term results with conventional physiotherapy. I am very lucky. This is my hobby and I get paid for it. I'm not sure whether I'll ever really retire fully. I won't work quite as many hours, but I know how much it feeds me to work with patients, and it can sometimes move you to tears when you're able to sort of really help someone and their pain is gone and they've lived with this pain for a long time. To me, there's no better pay packet than seeing somebody pain-free, less anxiety or stress, or less just functioning better in their lives as a result of doing something without drugs and without surgery, just you being able to help somebody. So I know it sounds corny, but yeah, helping people, spending time with people, and the fact that we have the luxury of spending a good amount of time during our appointments with patients and forming, appropriate professional relationships with people and seeing them and working with them on a journey, that still is the best thing for me. That doesn't leave a lot of time. No. I'm a father and a husband, so I have a family time and try and spend as much time as I can at home with the family, chilling out and relaxing. Another big part of my world is I study and teach martial arts. It's predominantly sword is my discipline, but study varying forms of martial arts and Zen philosophy. So I try to spend as much time as I can in doing that. And music's always been a big part of my world as well. So been involved in music since I was a child. I've sung, played various instruments, and last 10 years or so I've been trying desperately to learn to play piano. Not very well, but I'm trying.